Welcome to the Women's Money Wisdom Podcast. I'm Melissa Joy, a certified financial planner and the founder of Pearl Planning. My goal is to help you streamline and organize your finances, navigate big money decisions with confidence, and be strategic in order to grow your wealth. As a woman, you work hard for your money, and I'm here to help you make the most of it. Now, let's get into the show. Welcome back to the podcast. I am thrilled today to be talking with someone that's just like you and me, but who has gone from extraordinary career success to more success in a different path through intuitive and kind of flexible planning, both personally and with personal finance. So our guest today is Regina Sih-Meynier. She is a pharmaceutical PhD, and has an intuitive career in business strategist. She is a guide, a retreat host, speaker, and author of a brand new book. And Regina is going to talk to us about her career and pathway as a Gen X powerful woman, and how she found the path to both success but also personal fulfillment, which wasn't necessarily the path that she thought she'd be on. Regina, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be here, and it's truly an honor, and I just can't wait to jump into conversation with you.
Well, when we've had kind of our pre-discussions and I've been following you for a minute, I think you're doing such interesting things. And one of the things that I pound the table about, because so many of our listeners are Gen X and older millennial women who, were the first person to raise their hand in class, always said yes, never said no. Establishing boundaries was really a challenge. And they find themselves in this midlife, mid-career path where they're just not sure that what got them here is going to take them to their next, kind of step in fulfillment. And I think that's part of your story, and you're guiding other women to find their own pathway. So I can't wait for this conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. I just can't wait to share the story, which is also coming out in my book, A Thousand Whispers from Within, Manifesting a Life of Purpose and Prosperity. So I think that really just ties into this conversation. Maybe I can just start
Tell me
with,
about you. Tell me about
yeah,
you
okay.
from, I know that there's a lot packed in here, and everybody can go find the book when they want, not the Cliff Notes version, but give us a high level view of, kind of the first half of your career and who you were.
Yes, okay. Well, let me just start with I am Chinese Indonesian. So I grew up in an Asian culture, born in Indonesia, moved to the US when I was 3 with my parents and my older sister. And we grew up very much in that mindset of coming to the US with the American dream to have a better life. And my parents really focused on making sure that their 2 daughters could be independent in their life and that they wouldn't have to depend on anybody else. And so they really focused and valued a lot on education and having these traditional roles that would lead to success, and success, which meant you are financially secure. So hence you're safe. And so it was either the doctor, lawyer, or engineer. And so I very much grew up with I'm going to work super hard so that I can earn and buy all the nice, pretty things that my white classmates had in their wealthy homes. When I was growing up, I could see the difference. And I just really became that A student, and it was all about perfectionism and doing really well. And so I pursued my doctorate in pharmacy after getting my bachelor's in biology, and then went on and did a residency training. So I was 9 years in training. I really wanted to focus on helping patients and folks who were managing a lot of different diseases. So I ran a clinical pharmacy at a medical center. And then after 10 years, I went on into the pharmaceutical industry. I did the conventional success checklist, which is get married before I graduated pharmacy school. get the nice pretty house, get the nice sports car, make the really, over six figures, and get the, be married and do all the things. So I got married and by 25, I was married to someone who was becoming a doctor. We built the nice, pretty house, went on luxury vacations, did all the things. And I woke up one day and I was like, why am I so miserable? And so I
And you're like,
basically,
I told myself I would be as long as I did these things, then happiness would, the pot of gold
right.
is waiting at the end of the rainbow, right?
Right. Well, I did reach technically the success checklist in the pot of gold, but then it didn't equate to happiness or fulfillment. And that marriage ended, and I rebuilt my life back in San Francisco. And maybe it was like 18 months, 2 years later, I met the love of my life, a French man. We met on Match.com. I got remarried, and then we bought a house in San Francisco. Everything was lovely. My sister lived a mile and a half away, and my parents were in Southern California. And then I was in the pharmaceutical industry, and I just kept hearing this whisper, "You're supposed to do something else." And that whisper started probably around in 2013. And I didn't know what to do with it for many, many years. It just kept saying, "You're supposed to do something else. You're supposed to do something else." And I would be like, "What the heck do you want me to do?" I trained for 9 years. I built this career. I'm supposed to retire in it. And my husband is an entrepreneur. He's a cinematographer. And I'm the one with the steady income and the healthcare benefits. And so I can't leave the golden handcuffs. But then my mom died. And so in 2018, she passed away, and she had forbade me when she was alive to practice the intuitive psychic abilities that runs in our family, because she said I would have a poor life if I did. But when she passed, it was the doorway to my freedom to explore it, because I really wanted to connect with her after she passed away, and that really opened up the doors. And then the second big thing that happened was I got laid off in the pandemic, and I had been working with a spiritual life coach, and she reminded me that I had journaled this ask, and I had asked for more time, space, and resources to explore this thing that was calling me. And sure enough, the universe delivered, and I got laid off and I got a small package, but it was enough to make the transition.
Well, I've sat in that seat before where I knew that career-wise fulfillment wasn't happening for me. Worked at a larger organization where I was a partner and everything on paper looked like it was perfect. And similarly to you, it wasn't me making the decision to walk out the door. It was kind of the universe presenting the opportunity of you have to find a new place to work. That really was the launch of Pearl Planning and eventually this podcast. So I've been there, and it's really difficult to tell somebody when you're talking to them and they just got news that they got laid off. I think it's very trite to just be like one door closes and another one opens. But I can tell you for me that just like you're telling your story here, and that was what you needed. That there are many cases where, everything is a chapter, and sometimes chapters, the time for the chapter to close and open a new chapter is not the timeline that you thought it was. So I'm curious to hear more what happened next.
Yeah, gosh, we can relate on so many levels, right? That transition. I completely agree. When someone is right when they get laid off, it's sensitive. But I think when you ask for the thing that you desire, I really wanted more time, space, and freedom. Uh, I didn't want to be tied down to these work meetings. And so what ended up happening was, as I was working with my spiritual life coach, I started to develop these skills around the metaphysical world.
So
And
there's
what it,
science, right, to metaphysical, even though it's not necessarily the hard science that you studied to get your PhD. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, there is more and more research around the metaphysical world, the energy that we embody, the frequency in which our energy vibrates and what we put out into the world. There's more and more research and data around this. I love the work that Laura Lynn Jackson does because she partners with the Research Institute. And they look at all of this to pinpoint that this is real. It's not fake. It's not made up in our mind. We actually have the ability to tune in to things that we can't see, but that we can sense. And there's things like the clairs, right? Having clarity around clairaudience, which is what I have. It's a skill to be able to hear a voice that's not your own. It sounds like my voice, but it's not coming from me. It vibrates at a different energy and frequency, and it provides guidance, and everybody has access to this. So where I ended up landing in transitioning after I got laid off is I reached out um, to an old to my previous manager from the pharmaceutical industry because I was a little bit freaked out even though I got what I wished for. And I told her I got laid off and she said, "Give me your resume and I'll get you back in. I'll help you get back into the pharmaceutical world to get another position." And I'm like, "Okay, great." Cause that panic, the fear kicks in, even though it's something I had asked for. And from
And there's
there,
so much safety. I think we were discussing this as we prep for the call. When you're the person who gets the healthcare benefits for the family, you get the
yes,
regular paycheck every other
paychecks,
week, even if the family can be successful in a more entrepreneurial, perhaps risky, but high risk, high reward when they're prepared. And I'm putting on my financial planner hat at this moment. We're not taught how that works. So sometimes that's why,
right.
it's like, get me back into the seat where I get my paycheck, which is fantastic way for many people to earn a living, but not the only way.
Absolutely. And if you're feeling a little bit disconnected or dissatisfied, then that is a signal to explore another path. And so my manager was ready to take my resume and I said, "Let me update it." And I just had the chest tightness and the stomach turn. So the body intelligence came through, which is how your intuition can speak to you. And that is not the right way to go. So I had to tell her that I was going to take a summer sabbatical, and that's what I did. And I looped back with my financial planner, who we've been working with for many, many years. We have quarterly meetings. So I encourage folks listening in to have a financial planner advisor to be able to be really financially strategic so that your finances can support your dreams and that you can take the next right step feeling more confident. And so I knew that I really needed to figure out that transitional runway to create financial security because I needed to feel relaxed enough to tune into my inner wisdom. If I'm worried about finances and how I'm going to keep the lights on, then I won't be able to tune in because I'm constantly going to be worried. And you can only hear one internal voice at a time. So it's either your inner critic, your ego narrative, the fear voice speaking to you. And if you feed it, it will only grow and get louder. Or you address that. And this is what I teach is how do you address that so that you can maintain a higher energetic state to be in the right mindset to focus on hearing that inner wisdom that provides the guidance. And so I didn't go back to corporate. My husband's business was completely shut down in the pandemic. We had no income coming in, but we had over the years savings because I kept hearing my logical mind was like, pay down your mortgage in San Francisco. So make extra payments, but I could feel it in my body not to do that. And so what ended up happening is that we just built this nest egg and accumulated cash. And we were able to live off that cash and work with our financial advisor during the pandemic so that I could feel relaxed enough. But then I took further steps. There was sacrifice. So it was like we had 2 cars and a Vespa. Do we need 2 cars now that I'm not going back to corporate? So we got rid of one leased car and we owned the other one outright. And so we kept 1 car and a Vespa. And then the other whisper I kept hearing was lower your overhead even more. And so I'm like, who could I get to rent my San Francisco home? Well, my father offered to allow us to live with him in Southern California for rent free while we figured out our next steps. And so it there was sacrifice, but it's so worth it when you're trying to figure out what is the next thing so that you could feel relaxed enough to hear the whispers. And
I
so
if we can
that's
just
yeah.
pause there, I love one of the things that as I kind of my area of exploration and discovery right now professionally is describing to men and women in midlife where things that can throw you for a loop include your parents having extra needs that you need to support, career shifts that you are out of your control or are, dying to get out of you and come into the world. Um, Exploration of what makes you happy and why doesn't all of my success thus far mean that it feels right. Health diagnoses that you weren't expecting. So many different things can throw you for a loop in midlife. And if you approach that with the willingness to be flexible for how you build your life, it often is required if you're pursuing something that is better, that you can do anything, but you cannot do everything. And you need to be either both flexible, and that flexibility leads to resilience so that you can be prepared. But if you sit down with your financial planner or your spiritual coach and you say, I'm not willing to change a thing, and also I want this much more or different, it is so much more difficult than if you say, for this, I'm willing to, I don't know if the word sacrifice or if the word is more edit. I'm willing to, make an adjustment elsewhere because this is so important. And that's exactly what you just described.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think words have so much meaning and it's so important. And I love how you adjusted, it's a pivot, right? It's so perhaps it's not a sacrifice. In some people's minds, it might be, but it truly is a pivot and this ability to just say, now that I've tasted my freedom, I can't go back, Melissa. I I will do anything to live this life of freedom where I'm an entrepreneur. I can work from anywhere in the world. I can be with my 83-year-old father. It's his birthday today. I could be with my 83-year-old father in Southern California, work from there. I can work from France and continue to build community there. And I can work from my home base in San Francisco where my sister and her family lives a mile away. So at some point when you realize what you really love that fills your heart and lights you up, I think folks will find that you will do anything possible to maintain that life and to feel fulfilled.
So, how have things changed? Now, you're out of your sabbatical today, right? Like you're
Oh
doing
yeah.
things in the new world. What does that look like today? What type of, when you say you're an entrepreneur, what exactly are you doing with your, tell me about your business.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. So, as an intuitive career and business strategist, I am guiding accomplished professionals, men and women, to find their next chapter without feeling worried about or fearful about losing everything that they have built. And it's really understanding and figuring out how to tune into that inner wisdom because it will lead you to your next right step to find your next chapter and also address some of these fear things or the reality of living in the real world. You still have to pay your bills. You still have to be accountable and responsible. So being able to identify the skills and tools on how to do that. So when I first launched the business in 2021, I did a bunch of online courses and group workshops. And then I launched a retreat in France, the Go Slow to Go Faster retreat. And it was really taking all of the skills that I was teaching to individual professionals as well as to corporate leaders in the pharmaceutical industry how to lead from authenticity. And what that means really is how do you tune into that inner whisper, hear it, and then take aligned action to what it says? That is truly what is living authentically. When we listen to what our parents told us to do, what our peers, colleagues, culture tells us to do, and it's going against what you feel is internally authentic to you, then that is not living authentically if you decide to continue to live in that way. And so I'm really teaching folks how to go slower in the French countryside so that they can tune into that inner wisdom in a relaxed environment where they can be present to tune in, and then how to address all of the fear-based thoughts through the different practices, mindsets, breath work, physical movement. And I'm partnering um, with a person who does a bunch of rituals, Lori Diane. She does a lot of rituals. She does tarot. She does a lot of great energy work. And then I'm partnering with another person, Arizu, who basically does. She is a master at Kundalini yoga and breath work and brain memory work. And so these folks are joining me in the French countryside May 24th so that we can help accomplished professionals get the right tools that they can take home so that they can hear the guidance and how to address the blockers so that they can follow the breadcrumbs to their next chapter. So, and then the other piece is that the last 2 years I've been full time focusing on writing this book that's coming out in February. And it's A Thousand Whispers from Within. It's really a memoir about my journey of what's possible from leaving a corporate role and being really the goal, letting go of the golden handcuffs and identifying my true identity and some of the barriers that was holding me back and how I address them, especially how to know where to head next, how to address the financial security piece and that transitional bridge. And then really focusing on the stories about like how we got the house in France during the pandemic when we were both basically not working, how we acquired that home. And the piece about how the universe and my spirit team helped me hit my goal. This is all in the book. Helped me hit my financial goal. My goal in 2021 was to hit $1 million. And my team whispered to me in
A
24
million
while I was
dollars
exam
in revenue or
revenue and any income that was just coming in. Because
okay.
one of the mindsets I had to shift when I left corporate is that income or financial revenue, whatever you want to call it, can come in many ways. My old thinking was it was only through a W-9 or a 1099 through consulting. And I did consult back into the pharmaceutical industry during the transition. And what I discovered on this journey is that it can come in many forms and in magical ways as well. Um, this is in the book, but and I won't get into the details, but for example, like there was Texas land that I had owned from my previous marriage that was underwater. And um eventually over many years it somebody came to me and said they wanted to buy it. And we were able to make back some money from that, which was a miracle. And then a check that was, given to me to the bank. You have unclaimed property. I had no idea where this check came from. It was almost $20,000. So all these magical things that came through traditionally through my business, but through consulting, but through these other magical ways, I think it's important for folks to realize that it's possible and that tuning in to the right inner wisdom and connecting to source can get you to where you want to head. And so that's what I've been working on in this business so far, and really looking forward to connecting with more folks who are interested in some sort of transition and finding their next chapter.
Well, if I can just link that to the world of technical financial planning and considerations, first of all, I would mention as you are reflecting and sharing with, kind of the magical source of funds that you've found over the years. This is often typical for people, when you first start out in your career, your biggest asset is your human capital. But for those of us who over time, and if you're a younger listener looking for success over time, if you start early with making good financial decisions, whether the reason is because it's, a hobby and a passion, or like you described to me when we were getting ready for this conversation, it was security for you. You operated out of fear, making sure that ensuring that you never ran out of money because that was, life lessons that many immigrant families, I'm sure, and, children of single parents and so many and people who did not have the same resources that they felt like the communities they were raised in had, that they bring that to the table. But when you have made those good choices over decades, as you did with your education and then your earnings through your career, then you have a different tool set than you did as a younger adult. And so many times those possibilities exist because you have this resource pool of assets and possibilities that you have worked on developing. And when you're assessing working with a financial planner, just like you described, Regina, where you had a technical person to be a sounding board about your options and to assess. And certainly they were not calling the shots, but they were providing, I'm sure, their editorial, kind of objective assessment of what was possible. Um, then you may there are two kind of types of financial professionals. One type is really minding your money and your accounts and seeing how much they can grow. But another type that I think is growing and like what you described and what I hope to be is assessing your possibilities and listening to what you need for your life and then providing advice and consultation that is thinking not about how you can have the most in your accounts, but how you can have the life that you'd like to leave and how your money can be a resource for that. And so I hope for those of you listening that you have that sounding board or are looking. It's not too much to ask to have someone that sees your life as a higher purpose for their advice than your money, which certainly is important both for you and the work that they do. So I think that's really
Yes.
important to share. And I love that you're, bringing the intuitive and the spiritual into the conversation. But those of you who haven't yet found your intuitive voice, there's also parts of your story that are so much about just assessing what's working and are, more linked to, kind of a world of technical financial planning where the permission to say yes and to pursue possibilities was likely a very sound financial, like not too much risk because of the work that you'd done in the past. And it's such a gift
Yes.
that you got that feedback when you were, buying a house or like purchasing
Yes.
your home in France while you had a gap in employment.
Yes. Melissa, I think you really call out some great points that, yes, I mean, I did a lot of the hard work at the beginning and had the traditional role that provided the income to provide then the opportunities later that allowed me to do the things. I think it's important to, I feel like the message that keeps coming through is like, allowing that inner voice, whatever people call it, everyone has it, to lead the way of where you want to head. And I love how you called out that in my younger years, it was fear of security that drove my decisions. And that really now it's about leading with that inner voice and then allowing the finances and a financial advisor to support that strategy. And so all the logical, strategic stuff doesn't get thrown out the window. It all works together. It's just a matter of what leads and what supports.
I would just also endorse that oftentimes at points of time, whether it's a financial professional or career coach, therapist or psychologist, spiritual advisor, it is so helpful to have a sounding board that's not in your head, that doesn't
Yeah.
have the invisible backpack of the way you were raised, not to
Yeah.
change you, but to be someone who gives you permission to think differently and perhaps helps you to explore those pathways. So just like you described that you had, sought the advice of trusted professionals, I think that that
Yeah,
is something that can be so important and powerful. And, oftentimes those relationships come with a price tag. But to me,
yes,
it's often money well spent, just like a great education, to
absolutely.
invest in resources that will help you find your way.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally, 100%.
So, Regina, where can people find you to learn more about the great work you're doing, find your book, etc.?
Oh, thank you for asking. Well, my website is just my full name, reginasihmeynier.com. And so you can find a lot of updates there, and how folks can work with me. And then I also am on Instagram, and it's again my full name at Regina Sih-Meynier. And then I'm also on LinkedIn at the same name. And those are the places where I generally hang out to provide some tips and updates as well.
Well, congratulations on your journey. And I hope that our listeners felt inspired by the possibilities and the lessons. And best of luck to you all on slowing down to find more and more quality. So thank you for sharing with us, Regina.
Thank you, Melissa, for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Women's Money Wisdom podcast. If you found value in this episode, the best way that you can support the podcast is to forward an episode to a friend or leave a review. Go to proplan.com and the podcast link to get all the resources and links mentioned. This presentation by Pearl Planning is intended for general information purposes only. No portion of this presentation serves as a receipt of or a substitute for personal investment advice from Pearl Planning or any other investment professional of your choosing. Copies of Pearl Planning's current written disclosure brochure and Form CRS discussing our advisory services and fees are available upon request or on our website platform at pearlplan.com. The information that we share is meant to educate and inspire, not serve as personalized financial advice. Everyone's situation is unique, so be sure to consult with your own financial professional for guidance that fits your life. And just so you know, the opinions shared in this podcast are Melissa's own and those of her guests. They don't necessarily represent any organizations with which Melissa is affiliated. For more important disclosures, please go to our webpage at pearlplan.com.